Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I wanted to drop these two short stories with everyone. Inshallah, there's benefit in it. Maybe for a new Muslim or for someone who is studying the Arabic language, studying the Quran, or maybe just, your general Muslim. You may find it amusing if you know. When I was in Egypt studying, there was this Somali brother. Shout out to the Somalis. I got love for y'all. There was this Somali brother who was in a program at Al-Azhar, the university, the Islamic university in El-Qahira, in Cairo. And the program that he was in, the program was longer than your traditional 4-year bachelor's degree program. He was studying Quran, but he was studying all 10 modes of recitation. Not only was he studying all of the modes of recitation, but he was Hafiz of Quran in all of the modes of recitation, as well as the tafsir. So not only did he know all of the modes of recitation, he also knew the tafsir of the Quran. He was a very, very sought out individual to lead the salah in the various masajid in the area. This was in Medina to Nasr, for anyone that is familiar with Cairo. If you've ever gone over there, you know what I mean. Anyway, this brother was well known. He was sought out. Everyone wanted him to come and lead the salah in the masjid. If it was the month of Ramadan, everyone wanted him to come and lead the tarawih in the masjid. I mean, he was the man, so to speak, in that regard. So one day I was in the souk. I was in the market area, and I was with a group of students. And I had seen this brother, but I'd never met him. I didn't know who he was. Meaning I didn't know him personally. So anyway, long story short, the group of brothers that I was with met the group of brothers that he was with, and they all knew each other, and that's how I was introduced to the brother. So they introduced me to the brother, and I shook his hands, and we spoke for a minute. And I can't lie, I had ulterior motives, meaning I wanted to get with him to study the Quran, to study the tajweed and all of that. But I couldn't just run up on him after first meeting him and say that. So I met the brother, we shook hands, we talked, and I told him that I lived in Columbus, Ohio at one point, and Columbus, Ohio is heavily saturated with Somalis. We talked about Somali food, and we talked about some of the different masajid, and he knew them and he had heard of them, so we had some things in common. So we shook hands and parted and went our separate ways. So then maybe a week later, I see the brother again, and he's by himself and I'm by myself. So I roll up on the brother and I give salams, all the pleasantries and all of that, and then we start talking. And I said, Akhi, I need a favor. I need some help. And he said, with? I said, with the Quran. And he just smiled. He said, okay. He said, what do you need? I said, I need you to critique me and let me know if my pronunciation is, is off. What's my strength? What are my weaknesses? Can you help me? He said, yeah, I can do that. I said, okay, alhamdulillah. So at that time, I had an apartment, and I had very little furniture. I didn't really have anything in it, but I did have a table. I was a student. I had a table, and I had 2 chairs. So the brother, I give him the address. The brother comes to the house, and he sits down across from me, and sitting in the middle of the table is the Mus'haf. I have the Quran. I'm ready to go. I'm like, man, I'm about to recite, and he's gonna tell me I'm good to go. I thought he was going to just say, okay, go ahead and recite something and I'll critique it. La. Far from it. He said, he opened up the Quran and he said, start with Al-Fatiha. And I said, Al-Fatiha? Man, say less. Bismillah. Stop. Stop. And then he began to talk about makhraj and tongue placement when you pronounce certain huruf, certain letters, how you pronounce them, where the tongue should be. I said, okay, alhamdulillah. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Stop. Stop again. And he corrected me. And as I began to recite, stop, 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 to the point that I admittedly, I got frustrated and I stopped and I just looked at him. I wasn't happy. And he looked at me. He's a very kind-hearted, soft brother, Somali. He said, Akhi, what's wrong? I said, well, apparently, I don't know surahtul Fatiha. And he smiled and he said, don't worry, Akhi, I'm going to help you. Keep in mind, I had been Muslim over 20 years. Let that sink in. Been Muslim over 20 years. After the brother left, I remember sitting in that chair with the mushaf, sitting on surahtul Fatiha, and I remember I sat there for over an hour, just deflated. I was beside myself. Are you telling me I've been Muslim this whole time, and I've been making salah, and I've been reciting al-Fatiha, and I've been wrong this whole time? The lesson that I learned from it is that if you do not have someone who is teaching you al-Fatiha, who is teaching you and going over the ayat of the Quran, I can almost 100% guarantee you you're wrong. Your pronunciation is incorrect. We're talking surahtul Fatiha. We recite surahtul Fatiha, what is it, 17 times a day, something like this? And I had been Muslim over 20 years, and you're telling me that entire time I've been wrong and didn't know it. SubhanAllah. Deflated. Popped like a balloon. It was terrible. I felt horrible. But it was a lesson. It was one of the most important lessons that I learned in Egypt. Story number 2. I was in Kuwait, and I was working at an Islamic school in Kuwait as a school consultant. And it was time for surahtul Dhuhr. Well, for whatever reason, I assume it was work related, I missed surahtul Dhuhr with the Jama'ah, which is the students. So I went up on the 3rd floor with the teachers. And I stood and I did the takbiratul ihram, you know, Allahu Akbar. And next to me was a brother. They called him Sheikh Rabia. They say, or he's known as Sheikh Rabia, that's his name, Rabia. But they say he's a scholar of the Arabic language. His Arabic is on point, and he's known for that. He came and he stood next to me to pray Salatul Dhuhr, because he missed the Jama'ah as well. And then for a split second, he disappeared out of my sight. And then he reappeared. I didn't think anything of it. Later in the day, after we got off work, a group of us went to Cheesecake Factory in Kuwait, in the Avenues Mall, for those of you who are familiar with Avenues. And as I'm sitting there, we ordered the food. One of the brothers said to me, Akhi, I need to tell you something. I said, what? He said, when you were in the staff lounge and you were preparing for the salah, he said, this brother, this specific brother, pulled Sheikh Rabia back and told him maybe he shouldn't pray with you. Sheikh Rabia pulled away and came and stood next to me. My initial feeling about that was it racism? Was it because I'm considered ajnabi? I'm not Arab, I'm not, what is it? My initial reaction was anger, initially, but then I had to stop and think. The brother that pulled him back is a talib al-ilm, working on his master's degree in hadith in a university in Jordan. He used to fly on the weekends to Jordan to go study with the ulama and to work on his master's degree. So I put my anger aside. I said, you know something? Let me talk to the brother first. So I see the brother, this was on a Friday. I see the brother no, this was Thursday. I see the brother on Monday. And I see him in the hallway, and I asked him, I said, I need to ask you a question. I said, it came to my attention that when I was praying in the lounge with the teachers and Sheikh Rabia stepped up to pray with me, you pulled him back and said maybe he shouldn't pray with me. Did that happen? He said, yes. No hesitation. Care to explain? He said, absolutely. He said, I have never heard you recite Quran. I had never heard you recite surahtul Fatiha. He said there is an understanding or principle that if a person who does not know proper recitation of surahtul Fatiha, that anyone who prays with him who does know the proper tajweed and the proper pronunciation of surahtul Fatiha, that person has to redo the salah. The person who doesn't know, who's doing the best they can, they don't have to redo it. So he said, because I wasn't sure, I had never heard you recite, I wasn't sure, I was just reminding Sheikh Rabia of this principle. I'll say it again. If you are being led by somebody that you know, or someone who doesn't have proper pronunciation of surahtul Fatiha, then the person who's being led, who does know it, has to redo the salah. But the person who is doing the best they can, they don't. Their salah is still accepted. That's the importance of surahtul Fatiha, because there is no salah without surahtul Fatiha. So if a person is reciting surahtul Fatiha and they're mispronouncing and jacking it up, they're changing the meanings of it. And at that point, it's not surahtul Fatiha. And then the brother said, I'll be right back. And he went and came back with a book. And I cannot remember the book. It was all in Arabic. And he showed it to me. And he read it to me and he translated it for me to make sure that I understood. So it wasn't something that he just shot from the hip with. It was in one of the books of ilm. And I want to say it was explained, or a book from Sheikh Ahmed Ibn Hanbal, that it was a Hanbali book. He was a Hanbali. But I learned another lesson about the importance of surahtul Fatiha. The importance, number one, of knowing it, having the proper pronunciation, and the importance of being mindful of who's leading you. Being mindful of who's leading you. So I just wanted to drop those two short situations that I was in overseas, one in Egypt and one in Kuwait, in reference to surahtul Fatiha and its importance. Inshallah, someone hears this and finds benefit in it. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.